Okay, so for the second problem, it's making a reference to the same rectangle as the first problem, right? So I'm going to keep this same picture. Oh, again, n equals 6. So really, same picture as we had down here, right? This exact same picture. But now, instead of looking specifically at the 2, 5 subrectangle, we want to talk about in this question the general subrectangle, and we want a general expression for that subrectangle. So I'm going to come down here and say I don't want to focus my attention on I equals 2 anymore, and I don't want to focus my attention on j equals 5 anymore. So let me get rid of all of this.
Are you finding expressions in coordinates?
Well, let me get to that in a second. Okay, so some arbitrary, whichever it is, subrectangle is going to be defined by, well, it's going to have certain coordinates. It's going to have a certain range of values for x, and it's going to have a certain range of values for y. So the way I'm going to write this expression is just like I did in the book. I'm going to write, whichever one this is, dij. I'm going to write it as whatever its interval is on the x-axis cross whatever its interval is on the y-axis. So I just need to figure out what are these and what are these. Okay. All right. So here's a bit of good news. If we're in the, and I'm gonna point to a particular one of these just so I can have something in the picture, but I'm going to call this the ith subinterval. But that ith subinterval has a right endpoint and it has a left endpoint, and there's a very convenient formula or very convenient notation for those endpoints. The right endpoint is always xi. And that's just a neat fact, right? Like, so you'll notice, for example, when I is equal to 1, the right endpoint is x1. So that just, it always works out that way. And likewise, the left endpoint then, being as it is the one before that, is x of I minus 1. All right. Well, we also have handy formulas for what is xi. Xi is a plus, hey, come on in, I delta x. And we have a handy formula for delta x. And a, we know, is 2. So there's just a matter of kind of plugging in some details here. So let's see here. A being 2. That's nice that we get that. Delta x is, well, it's b minus a over n. So in this case, that's 1/2. We talked about that in the last problem. And so there's my formula for x of I. Yeah? Okay. Conveniently, x of I minus 1 is a very similar formula, just I minus 1 instead of I. And so that means that I can fill that in. Keep in mind my my interval, excuse me, my dij, we decided was going to be, there's a range of values for x cross and then a range of values for y. Well, xi is that right endpoint. Xi minus 1 is that left endpoint. So then a similar analysis on the other side. It's just that on the y side of things, we'll be looking in the j slot, and the top side is yj, the bottom is yj minus 1, and then similar. Everybody happy with that? Any questions about?
So what is the formula, like xi equals a plus I delta x? Is that like a...
so you're wondering about,
how do you derive that?
Where did this come from?
Yeah,
it's a formula that's in the book. I can show you quickly like the idea behind it. The idea is that delta x, so delta x is that distance, right? And so if you're looking at the first interval, by the way, notice that the starting point there is a, right? Being as you're in the first interval, you're going to take that a, you're going to add to it 1 delta x to get to its right endpoint. Okay. Right? Whereas if you're in the second, if you're looking at the second interval, you'd have to add 2 delta x's to get to the right endpoint of that subinterval, and then etc. So in general, for the right endpoint of the ith subinterval, it's a plus I delta x. Yeah, old formula from single variable, and it's also in the text here. Yeah.
Do the first part.
Yeah, hang on just 1 second. So, anybody else have any questions about this one here? Is everybody okay with, so we know what these are now, and then it's going to be similar to get the yj minus 1 and yj. Is everybody happy with that?
Do we want to keep this form, or can we simplify this form?
Oh, I mean, maybe simplify it a little bit, I suppose. So you might write, for example, 2 plus I over 2. Might just look a little cleaner, perhaps. Yeah, whatever looks nicest. Okay, let me stop that recording.